Today we're going to be learning about possessive nouns. And I just want to remind you that a noun is a person, place, or thing. We've talked quite a bit about nouns lately. So we know a noun is a person, place, or thing. And we also know that we have the things called proper nouns. And if you remember correctly, a proper noun is a name of a noun. So for example, if you had the word, try and get off here. If you had the word house, it would become a proper noun if you changed it to White House, because house is a noun, but White House is a name of an exact house, so then it would be capital letters because that turns it into a proper noun. Now we're going to go in today and we're going to be talking about what possessive nouns are. I'd like you to think here for just a second if you know what possessive nouns are, and if you do, take 1 second or 2 seconds to tell your neighbor, whisper it please. So many of you probably said that a possessive noun shows this fancy word right here of ownership. Possessive nouns are when it's who owns something. That's what ownership is, or whose is it. So exactly what this says here is it names who or what has something. And we'll dig in a little bit deeper here, but possessive nouns can be both singular and plural. So there's a picture over here that you can look at here real quick. It talks about how the word pigs is plural, which means more than one. So then you would add the apostrophe after the S. So the pigs' pancakes are so yummy because whose pancakes are they? They are the pigs' pancakes, but since pigs is already plural, you just add an S at the end. And we'll get into that just a little bit more, but I just thought that picture was cute. So first we're going to start off with singular possessive nouns. And we know that singular means only one. So for example, if you look right here, it says Jim's game is on Friday. Well, you want to ask yourself, whose game is it? It's Jim's game. So Jim's, you want to add an apostrophe S because you're saying whose game is it, and it's Jim's and it's singular. So to show ownership, you add an apostrophe S. It works the same way with this one. It says Mr. Taylor's car needs an oil change. You ask yourself, well, whose car is it? It's Mr. Taylor's. So you add an apostrophe S to the word Taylor. Singular nouns need an apostrophe S, like I said, to the end of the word to show possession. So if you look right over here, you see a bunch of different examples. So dog house, well, whose house is it? It's the dog's. So you add an apostrophe S. I'll give you just a second to read through those. So remember, if it is a singular noun to show possession, you have to add an apostrophe S at the end. Now we're going to jump into the plural possessive nouns. If you remember correctly, plural means, that's a bad color, more than one. And possessive shows ownership. Terrible handwriting. So if it does not end in an S, then that means you need to add an apostrophe S. That's what we just talked about. However, if a noun ends in an S, you only have to add the apostrophe at the end of the S. So if you look at this example right here, it says the dog's hunger drove them to eat the birthday cake. So you want to say, whose hunger is it? Well, it is the dog's because there's more than them, because they use the pronoun of them. So you know that there's more than one dog. There was also already an S at the end of dog, so you just add the apostrophe right at the end. So if you look over here at the plural, some examples of the plural, you have whose house is it? It's the dog's house, and it already has an S at the end, so you just add the apostrophe. The one I want you to pay close attention to are these last two at the bottom. So the word men is plural because the singular form of men is man. So that's why even though men is plural, you have to add the apostrophe S because men doesn't have an S at the end, even though it is plural. And it's the same way with the children's. Children is the plural form of the word child, so you have to add an apostrophe S to show ownership because there is no S at the end to just add an apostrophe. So now we're going to practice here really quickly. It says, is the underlined nouns plural or possessive, or are they both? So if it says, author Milton Meltzer has written about the lives of several queens. When you look at this one, you know that the word lives is plural. It is not possessive. I'm gonna run out of room there. It's not possessive because it's not going back and linking that to anything. Whereas before we had like whose house, it was the dog's house. Well, there's nothing right after to link that one. So it is just plural. Now we're going to go down to the next one, and it says, Meltzer's book, 10 Queens, Portraits of Women in Power, has a section on Elizabeth. This one we know is singular, and it is possessive because we know it is possessive because it has the apostrophe S. And we ask ourselves, well, whose book is it? It's Metzler's book. So you add the apostrophe S. That's a typo in there. It's supposed to be a Z. Meltzer is singular because you added an apostrophe S at the end. Now, Elizabeth I became England's queen in 1558. Again, this is much like the example before. This is possessive because it has an apostrophe S, and that means that England was singular. All right, so now we're going to move into one more set of practice, and this one wants you to write the correct possessive form of the underlined word. So if you have the word bear, paw, you say, well, whose paw is it? And it is the bear's. So since there is no S at the end of it, you would add an apostrophe S to the word bear's. When we're looking at friend loyalty, you say, well, whose friend is it? Or whose loyalty is it? It is the friend's. So again, it's another apostrophe S because there are no S's at the end of these words. Now we have rabbits' cages. Well, whose cages is it? It's the rabbits. But rabbits already ends in an S, so you want to just put an apostrophe at the end of it. Now, this one says write the correct possessive form of the underlined word. Roberto Clemente was one of Puerto Rico's most famous athletes. Puerto Rico does not make sense, so you have to say Roberto Clemente was one of Puerto Rico's most famous athletes. So if I were fixing this one, I would do Puerto Rico with an apostrophe S because Rico doesn't end in an S, but we need to show that it is Puerto Rico's famous athlete, so we need to put an apostrophe S to show ownership of whose athlete is it. Now the second one right here, it says a ball player's dream is to play in the major leagues. Well, there's a key word in here that helps us understand this one, and it's the word makes it seem like there are only one ball player. So a ball player's dream is to play in the major leagues, then that means you just need to come in here and add an apostrophe between the R and the S because it's only one. Ball player is singular since it says and you want to say whose dream is it? It's that ball player, so you add an apostrophe. Last one, the best competitors earn their teammates' respect. Teammates is plural, so since that word is plural, you just want to add an apostrophe after the S. I'll rewrite that for you. So it's teammates apostrophe because it already has an S and it is meant to be plural in that sentence. So you have to ask yourself, well, can I take off the S and does it make sense and reread things just like the Puerto Rico one? It didn't make sense without the S, so you know you needed to add an apostrophe S. You have to pay close attention to the words around them to help them understand, is this plural or is this singular?